All right, it looks like we have everybody in here, so I will go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This is a very large group, probably one of the biggest groups I've done a training for, so I really appreciate all of you jumping on at such short notice. And being that a short notice, hope you don't mind, I'm going to stay off camera because I am not camera ready. The joys of working from home. I'm going to go ahead and record. I'm going to start it now. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so
Yes.
hi everyone.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Jacqueline Olson. I'm a trainer here at Property Insight, and I also help with the help desk support for TitlePoint as well. Today we're going to be doing kind of a point A to point B training on TitlePoint. We're going to go over many different things, but I'm going to try to keep it kind of higher level, not to bog you down on too much at one time. We're going to go over everything within TitlePoint from the combination search page, express search, the differences between the two. We're going to talk about grant or grantee versus a name search, as well as an instrument versus an image search. I don't know if those terms sound familiar to you guys, but if not, I'll give you full visuals on those. TitlePoint is kind of a one-stop shop for property exams, as well as name and grant or grantee searches. You have the ability to view and retrieve documents into your orders. You can also pull copies of maps. There is 2 different types of back plants that we're also going to look at too, if time permits. That's going to be grant or grantee back plant, as well as the tract books. So there's kind of a lot going on in TitlePoint, and I would love if this is interactive. So if anybody has any questions throughout, definitely feel free to chime in. I'll also keep an eye on the chat as well, so you can put your questions in there if you don't feel like unmuting yourself. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So TitlePoint is a web-based application. You can access it just by going into your browser and going to TitlePoint.com. First rule of thumb, make sure you're using Microsoft Edge as opposed to Chrome. And the reason being is because there are several functions that are not supported in Chrome. That is the image viewer called iView. Also, the printing goes through iView as well, so you'll want to make sure you're on Edge for that. And also, the grant or grantee backplant requires that you're on Edge. Login screen, pretty self-explanatory. There's just a few little things I want to point out. So we have the username and password fields here. One thing to watch out for is that TitlePoint loves to try autofilling your email address as your username. If you ever see your full email in here, just know that is not your correct username, and you're going to have a hard time logging in with it. You also have the ability to reset your password on your own if needed, and you'll get an email with instructions on resetting your password. You're also required to change your password every 90 days, so after a 3-month mark, you're going to get prompted to reset it. Any downtime for scheduled maintenance will be displayed down here. And we also have our support line here that I help run. So if you ever have any questions or issues or difficulties logging in, you can call this number and we're more than happy to help. And we also cover all U.S. time zones, and it is a domestic line, so it's all people that work for Property Insight, and we're in the United States, so there should be no difficulties there. Last thing, we do display tips and tricks here in this section, and I'm somebody who's used TitlePoint for 7 years now, and occasionally I'll glance over and I'll learn something new that might help me in my workflow, so never hurts to glance over here before you log in. With all that being said, I'll go ahead and log into TitlePoint. And I don't know if it's just me, but it's going a little slow today. All right, so once I've logged into TitlePoint, I have landed on the combination search page, and I'm going to talk a lot about this page in just a minute, but before I do, I want to dive into a little bit of the preferences. So being that I landed on the combination search page, this is because I have set this as my own default. If you ever go into Tools and Preferences, Here you have the ability to set your state and county defaults. So maybe more often than not, you're searching in one particular county. That could save you some clicks throughout the day. And then also on the general tab here, you can set your default landing page every time you log in. And there's a ton of other preferences, like what image viewers you want to use, and for searching, the way you want your results to be displayed and things like that. It's kind of overwhelming, and I'm not going to get into all these, but if you're ever searching or trying to print or, basically anything, and it's not looking as expected, it's more than likely a preference setting that just needs to be adjusted. So you can always call us at the help desk, and we'll be happy to look over those with you and get you set up properly. But if you ever do mess around with your preferences, always make sure to save changes at the bottom of each individual page that you make any changes to, and then it'll refresh and those changes will be reflected on your next search. So going back to the combo page here, this is where I would recommend you start a search if you're needing to run a property. Let me just get my examples pulled up here. Now there is going to be a little bit of a nuance to this. If you go to adjust your county and this entire section disappears, that would indicate that that county is actually a TPX county. And what that means is basically you're not going to be able to search by your property on this page, but you'll want to go over to the Express search instead. All TPX counties are searchable by address, property ID, or assessed owner on the Express search page. And there are perks to the Express search, such as the ability to pull your tax cards directly from the county. You can pull plat maps into your order if available. You'll be able to get a lot of ownership history on the property as well. But if you don't need those perks, you don't have to use Express search. You can just go straight to your grantor grantee search. And I will say that a lot of Express or TPX counties are strictly grantor grantee. For example, let's go, say Manatee, I think. Well, most of them are strictly grantor grantee. However, some do still give you the ability to search by legal, but they're going to look a little bit different than what we call a TP county, which is searchable in combo. And that might be a little bit confusing, but I'm going to give you some visuals on that here in just a second. So you'll see here that I'm still in Manatee County, and that entire section where I could search by the address has disappeared. So you just want to make sure this is available if you're searching on combo, and if you ever change it and it disappears, that is a good indication that you should probably go to Express search or go straight to your grantor grantee page if you don't need any of the perks of the Express search. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of demonstrate an example of running a search in a TP county here. Just got to adjust this. So first field you're going to see is the order number field. Now this is most likely optional for you guys, but it is highly recommended because TitlePoint will store your order in the system for 180 days. And as you go into, like say, orders and find, and you look up past orders, it will have all of your saved images as well as your results. And then anytime you add something new to an existing order, that 180-day will reset. So if you're doing date downs and things of that nature. Next is the state and county drop downs, which you kind of just saw me adjust here a few times. And to the right of every state and county, you're going to have some coverage dates available. And this is referring to our digitized plant. So you can see here in Hillsborough, our plant starts in 1959, and it's currently good through the 5th of this month. And you will see multiple sets of plant dates here, and that's because this is the combination search page, which means you can run a combination of different types of searches. So you can search by property as well as name. Next section here is where I would typically recommend you search for your property. I would say use the tax ID number if you have it, making sure to follow the format in the example above. If you don't have the tax ID number, then I would recommend you search by your street address here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this address, and I'll just paste it right in here. Now, what's really important to know is that you always want to follow the format we give in the example above. So we just want the street number and name. We want to leave off any directionals, suffixes, the city, the zip, all of that. So we're just going to keep it short and sweet. We like to say less is more in TitlePoint, so I'm just going to include the street number and name. As a last resort, if you don't have the tax ID or the address, you can search by the assessed owner's name, and it'll return any potential matches of properties that are currently owned by that name that you input. And again, less is more, so when you're searching by either of these methods, only do one or the other or the other. You do not want to simultaneously fill out all these different fields. Some folks like to go ahead and kick off their name search directly from here, but keep in mind that this is a GI search. So there's a difference between name and grantor grantee. Name search, like I said, is strictly GI, so it's general index. And it's only going to be documents that are not posted to a legal description, such as state and federal tax liens, judgments, court cases, things of that nature. So if you're needing to run a grantor grantee search, you'll probably want to just hold off on this part, and then you can kick off a grantor grantee later on after you view your property results. Next section here, we have a legal description. So maybe you don't know your address, your tax ID, or your assessed owner's name. You can search by legal, and depending on the county, you're going to have various different options. But I would say I typically don't recommend this unless it's all you have, because depending on what legal description you have, you may land in a middle or parent layer of property. Whereas if you search by your address, tax ID, or name, you're going to be guaranteed to land in that very top layer of property, and then TitlePoint will bring back all the postings for those underlying layers as well. There's a nifty little tool here in the legal section. It's called the subdivision lookup. This can be really helpful if you're needing maybe more information on your subject legal. Maybe you don't know how to format it, or maybe you just need to know the plat that's associated with your property. For example here, I can type in any keyword or words in this section here and click on continue. And it's going to bring back any subdivisions that have any matching words. So I put in Ashley Oaks. Here you can see the different units or phases, things of that nature. You can see what maps are tied to those subdivisions. And then you could even go into the details of a particular subdivision. You can see when it was created, basically when the plat was dated or recorded. You can come in here and see the legal description, and at times you can see the underlying section, township, and range, things like that. And then down here in this section, you can see all of the overlying lots that are tied to that subdivision. So maybe you happen to come in here, find your subject property, you can check the box, add it to the search page, and then it's going to automatically fill out these fields the correct way. So that's just a nice tool I like to show everybody because it can be useful, especially if all you need is a copy of a plat map. You could go in there, find the book and page, and then go straight into your image search and pull a copy of that map. Kind of a little shortcut. All right, and then the very last section is the date filter, but I would recommend you don't even ever use this because it acts as a pre-filter, and if you accidentally filter out postings that you might have needed, you would have to completely rerun the combination search without that filter. And there are what we call post filters on the actual results page, so that way if you ever need to bring postings back, you can just reset it and they'll all come back. So just to kind of recap, I put in my order number, I adjusted my state and county, and then I put in my street number and name. Now at this point, I'm just going to come down here and begin the search. But before I do, are there any questions on this page? All right. I'm going to go ahead and begin the search now. And you'll notice here under the recent activity, this is where my order is actually starting to build. And the recent activity is nice because it'll hold your last 10 orders and or searches. So if you're working in here a lot throughout the day, you'll be able to toggle around between those orders. Also, above the recent activity, I do want to point out the search parameters section. It'll have your state and county, your property in question's legal description, as well as the coverage dates that correlate with the type of search you just ran. And then if you show the details, you can see who searched it, when they searched it. This is useful if you come into an order after somebody and maybe you want to see who did the work before you. And then we have some search filters down here which actually pertain to my preference settings. So the way I'm set up for my property searches, I'm including all tracked. I'm including all levels of underlying property, which kind of goes with what we see here in the property history. And then I have all levels of overlying property up to the first plat or subdivision. And I'm not sure exactly how you all are set up, but if you need any adjusting on the way your property results come back, just let me know and we can make those adjustments for you. Now, the first thing you're going to see before you actually get into your property results is the property history. And this can be really useful for an examiner, especially if you're needing to go back really far on a property. Basically, what TitlePoint does is it maps all of the underlying properties together and cross-references them to your property in question. And all of the postings for these underlying layers are already going to be included in my property results. So rather than having to manually search all of these individual underlying layers, it basically did the work for me and they're all brought back in this result set. So in the property history, we have my PIQ, it's my property in question. You can see the legal description and the tax ID that is tied to it. Below that, you'll have the from section. So this is going to show all of the underlying accounts or underlying layers to my PIQ. And then down here at the very bottom, we have the to section. So this would show any overlying accounts or layers. So if my PIQ ever had an out sale deed recorded or it was split or lot line adjustment, things like that, those accounts would be displayed here. And you can also see the created column. This will show you when that account was created. And then if it was ever vacated or replatted, you can see the date of that as well. So you can kind of go back and see the history of the property that way. You also have the ability to view or retrieve maps as they are available. So if I just wanted to view the plat map, I could click on that hyperlink there. Or maybe I actually need to retrieve it over into my order. I could check the box and hit retrieve map images. And there you'll see I now own that image for the life of the order. And the property history can be hidden, but it is always here for you if you need it. Now we're going to get into the property results. So there's kind of a lot going on here. I'm just going to kind of touch on the most important points here. Starting with the doc type column. Now every document type is abbreviated, but if you hover your cursor over these abbreviations, it'll tell you the full title of those documents. So there's no need to memorize all of them. And also every document type is categorized. So you can see we have a bit of a color coding system going on here. And you don't have to memorize this as well. I can send you all some cheat sheets after the training. But your green documents are going to be conveyances or affidavits, basically anything that transfers any kind of interest. Your yellow postings are going to be open money. Your blue postings are going to be released encumbrances. And then anything in gray is miscellaneous, but not to be ignored. They just don't fit in any of the other categories. We also have the CI column here. This stands for Coupler's Index. This is also really useful to examiners because it basically groups primary and secondary documents together, and then it ties them together with an arbitrary reference number. So for example, here we have this mortgage, and then we have modification, assignment, and a satisfaction. And normally, since I like my results in reverse chronological order, these would be somewhere towards the top of my result set, but it places them directly under that primary mortgage and then ties them together with this arbitrary number 24. And the numbers themselves don't mean anything. It's just kind of like here you can see we have 24 or actually 25 groups of documents that go together. And as you go into the older documents, you can see the number goes down. This is the 19th group of documents that go together, and so on and so forth. Next we have the recording date column. So if you remember on the combo page, I recommended to never use that date filter because it is a permanent filter. But with the recording date here, you can filter by dates directly on this page. So maybe you only need to view documents from 2000 forward. You can see it shrunk my results a little bit, and now we're only looking at documents from 2000 forward. Now, anytime you apply a filter, you're going to see a little red flag here on the column where the filter was applied. So if you ever need to bring those results back, which we always recommend that you do, you can just click Reset Filters and it'll bring the result set back to its original form. And the reason we recommend resetting your filters is because if you ever go to print, email, or save your chain, you don't want to be hiding any of the postings. Just in case somebody looks at it after you, they don't see something. Unless that's what you guys do on purpose, then feel free to keep the filters. Next column is the Doc ID column. So as long as a document has a blue hyperlink, you do have the ability to click on it and open it up. This particular viewer is called Web Viewer. It's one of our 2 viewers that we have in TitlePoint. Web Viewer is great for more of a paperless workflow. It's kind of an investigative viewer. You can open up multiple Web Viewer windows at one time, which is nice. So if you ever need to compare documents, you can do so like this. There's no print feature since it is meant for a paperless workflow, but you do have the ability to download or email these copies directly out of here. And then you have all of your other typical image viewer tools like go from page to page, rotate, things like that. You can highlight, underline, things of that nature. The other viewer we have while we're on this topic is called iView, and it's much more robust. The way that my preferences are set up, I can open iView if I'm viewing a document from my order. So let's say I need to retrieve this deed and this open mortgage. I'm going to check those boxes and hit Retrieve Images. Then if I click on the document from my recent activity, it's going to let me open it up in iView. And depending on what viewers you like and what works best for you in your workflow, we can definitely set you up to use one or the other or both, like the way I do. So it's totally up to you. But this is iView. It is nice because you'll have all of your documents that have been retrieved into your order under this one viewer, and you can jump around from doc to doc or page to page. There is the ability to print the selected document here, or you could go into File and you could print the entire order if you want to go ahead and print all of those documents. There's a lot of different annotation tools as well, like highlight, underline, arrow, shapes. You can create text boxes if you need to make any notes. And then we also have a pretty good OCR tool as well, which I'll show you that in just a minute. You can zoom, jump from doc to doc or page to page, and then of course you can rotate single page or entire documents. And then we also have this negative feature here, which I think this is one of the best things about iView. Let's say you have a plat map and it's really hard to make out the text or the calls on that plat map. If you click this negative feature, it'll invert those blacks and whites and hopefully bring some clarity to that document. And then if you ever need to bring it back to the way you had it, you can either scroll out and scroll back in, or you can just click it 2 times. Question for the team. Do you guys ever have to type out your legal descriptions?
Not meets and bounds. We have typists.
Okay. Well, there is an OCR tool. I'll just graze over it pretty quickly here, but it's this ABC lightning bolt icon. If you ever do need to copy your legal or any text for that matter, you'll get this little toolbar, and then you can just left click and drag, hit the blue check mark, and then it'll copy that legal description verbatim. So you could even have your typists do this if they have access to TitlePoint, save them some time. And then from here you can update the text and remove the line breaks so there's no weird formatting, and then you could even make it all into uppercase sentence case, whatever you might need. So then you could just copy directly from here and paste it into your production software. All right, so there's a lot more with iView. I'm not going to get too much more into it, but if you ever need help with it, as always, just reach out to me and we can go more in depth. So moving on with the property results here, pretty much every column is sortable and filterable. We have the party one filters as well, so if you need to look for a specific name that's in the party one, you could type out the first few characters and it'll bring back all potential matches here. And then you could even copy it to the second party, so that way you're going to see postings that have these characters in party one or party two. I'm going to reset. We also have the legal description column. Now, if you remember in the property history, we have all these underlying layers, and maybe you don't even need to see all the postings for these properties. You can filter out by legal as well. You can see there's a lot going on in here. Maybe you only need to look at your top layer of property, which, side note, it'll always be at the bottom of this list. A little counterintuitive, but that's just the way it is. You could uncheck all of these legals and it'll clear out everything it can. And then you could just check that very top layer of property. And now you're only looking at postings for your property in question. So it'll clear out a lot of that extra noise. And then last thing is the remarks column. So this is mainly used for APNs, consideration amounts, maybe special notes, bad legal, things of that nature. And if you ever need to see more information on a posting, you can always expand by hitting these little plus signs, and you can see maybe the title company that recorded it and things like that. So that's always just an extra tool as well. And you could expand all the documents by clicking this plus sign on the column header. All right, is there any questions about the property results in what we call a TP county? All right. One last tidbit on this page, there is these little icons here, and this is good to know how a document was handled in that particular result set. The green dot means that that image was actually retrieved into your order, whereas the eyeball icon means that it was just quick viewed by clicking on the doc ID. So this is useful if you come into an order after somebody, you'll be able to see how exactly they treated these documents. All right, so the next thing we're going to get into now is kicking off a name or a grantor grantee search. So let's say I reviewed my property, I retrieved the images that I needed over into my order, and now I need to go ahead and I need to search the current owner for any judgments, liens, things of that nature. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. One is by right-clicking on your order number, and you can go to Add Search. And I mean, you can add any type of search, but you'll have the option for the name, which again is strictly GI, or you can do a grantor grantee, which is an umbrella of everything. So it'll be your GI documents, as well as all of your conveyances, mortgages, things like that. The other way to do it is by right-clicking directly on the name out of your property results, which this is actually the way I prefer. And then you can go to search names. Now here at the top, you'll have the option between a name search or a grantor grantee search. So this will really depend on how you guys do this in your operation. I know a lot of people like to do grantor grantee to capture everything, or maybe if it's a common name and you know you're going to have excessive results, you could do just the name search to capture any judgments and things like that. Now, a couple things to keep in mind with this. You can add more names and then check the box if you're needing to add on additional names. Also, one thing to keep in mind is if you're putting in like an individual name, you're going to want to make sure you add a comma between the last and first name. Otherwise, TitlePoint might try to run it as a business if there's no comma. But here you can see we have business name, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as is. And then we're going to have a 75 to 100% SoundX match, so we might get some possible misspellings and variations that are not exact to this, but that's kind of what we want. And then I can go ahead and just begin the search from here. And I have a feeling I'm probably going to get a lot of results since this is what looks like a builder. Oh no, that's pretty fast. So here you can see my name search is done and it's in bold, which means I have not yet clicked on it or reviewed it. But once I do, you'll see it kind of de-emphasize itself, and that indicates that it's been reviewed here. And not much going on here with the name search. That's just a couple different ways you could add that on. Another trick I want to show with this, I'm going to go ahead and add another search here. I'm going to add, we'll go grantor grantee. If I'm adding on a name search from here, and we'll do a name like this. If you have an instance where your name could be maybe two possible first names, or maybe you have a name like Jin Sun Pak, and you know you're going to have to run different combinations of that, like Pak Jin Sun, Sun Pak Jin, etc. You do have the ability to run alternate combinations, and TitlePoint will automatically run every possible combination of the first, middle, and last name that you've put in this field. So then I can go ahead and begin that search. Don't even know if there's any postings on this name in this county, but we'll see. And you can see over here under the search parameters, it'll tell you all the different combinations that it ran. So we did Mitchell Cameron and Cameron Mitchell automatically, and it brought back all of the postings. Now, for the most part, on your name or grantor grantee searches, the color coding and sorting and filtering is going to work exactly the same. But there is one exception, and it has to do with the Party 1 and Party 2 filters. So this will actually work a little bit differently. On the property results, when I would do this filter, you would basically just type in a name, and it would filter that way. This works differently because you actually have checkboxes. Now, you can see here we have a lot of variations that are not Cameron Mitchell or Mitchell Cameron. And the way you would want to filter these out is by checking this box up here, and it'll clear out everything possible. You'll see we have a lot of postings left over, but these are basically probably secondary documents that don't have his name at all. But then you could come in here and deselect to bring those postings back, for example. So this also seems a little counterintuitive. You're unchecking things to bring the postings back, but that's just how it works here. And the Party 1 and Party 2 filter will automatically communicate with each other. So you can see I have the same selections or deselections. All right, I'll pause again for any questions. Alrighty. So that was pretty much a combination search, kind of a point A to point B in what we call a TP county. TP counties are always going to have this pretty color coding result set. Next thing we can get into now is an express search. So again, you're going to want to do an express search if on the combo page this entire area disappears. So that'll tell me I want to go to express. Now, again, you don't have to use the express search, but if you would like the perks of using it, which I'll show you, then you'll want to use it. If not, you can go straight to the property search and search by legal description if that county is available, or you can just go straight to the grantor grantee if you're unable to search by legal description. So going back to the express search, again, you're going to have the field for your order number, which again, I recommend. I'm going to minimize this order just to keep it looking clean in here. And then we need to make sure my state and county is correct. And again, you'll have the coverage dates. And then you're going to have this lookup section where you can search by the assessed owner, kind of a last resort, I would say, the address, or the property ID, so the PIN or APN. I'm going to go ahead and search by address here. And the formatting of the address on Express Search is different. It actually wants you to include the street address and the city or zip. So in this case, I'm just going to delete that. And now we follow the example and we input it there. Now you guys do have Express Tax, which is basically pulling snapshots of the tax cards directly from the county. So you can opt in or opt out for those. And in some counties, you'll be able to automatically include plat maps. And then lastly, in the counties where there is a legal cover, you'll be able to automatically run that property. Now there are going to be some counties where you don't have this because it's strictly a grantor-grantee county. This last box here, which I have unchecked based on my preferences, is to automatically run the assessed owner's name, but I don't like to do that because I like to make sure it's spelled correctly and formatted correctly. So I'll usually hold off on that until one of the next steps. So once my address is put in, I'm going to click on Find, and you'll get some lookup results here. So then you can verify the name with the property ID, make sure it all matches, and then begin the search. And this might take a little bit longer since I am getting snapshots from the county. And I believe the tax cards that come from the county are instantaneously retrieved, so they should be current to the day. And you're also going to see that the property results in a TPX county is going to look a lot different than the TP county because there's no color coding, unfortunately, and the filtering is going to work a lot differently as well. While this is loading, does anyone have any questions? You guys have been so quiet so far for such a large group.
I just want to clarify when we're going through the name selections, we deselect to choose that name. That's correct, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, you'll notice when you go to open up the name filter, everything is already unchecked. So by checking all of them, it'll clear out everything, and then you deselect to bring those postings back.
When you're running the segment and lead search, can you invert the date? Can you run it from oldest to newest instead of newest to oldest?
Yes. So my preferences are set to reverse chronological. You can always change yours to be true chronological or reverse chronological, whatever you want. Or you can click on the column header, and that will sort the postings by date. And then if you click it a second time, it'll sort it in reverse to how you had it before. This is taking a minute. Now, sometimes if it seems like it's loading forever, oh, it got lucky. I was just about to lose my patience and refresh. Okay, so this is what the Express tax results will look like. It's kind of a uniform format here, and sometimes you'll have a lot of info. Sometimes you'll just have the tax amount and whether it's paid. And then you'll also get snapshots directly from the county. So here you can see we have a tax document. And then if I open it up here, you can see it's basically a screen scrape directly from the county here. And then also, I opted to automatically include plat map, so that's automatically in my order. I don't think I need to open that. And then here we have my Express results. So if I click on where it has my address, this is what the Express search results is going to look like. And this is basically the perks that I was talking about. And if you don't need this, then you don't have to run an Express search because Express search is a couple bucks more expensive than if you were to just go straight to grantor, grantee, or property. But you're going to get a lot of property information. You're going to get a lot of insight on the ownership history, and then you could even view the deeds directly from here as well. And then let's say you just needed a copy of the last vesting deed, you could download it. And then also at the bottom here is where you can kick off a name or a grantor grantee search. And you could have done this automatically on the last page, but I like to come in and make sure I have my commas, make sure these are spelled correctly. Usually if there's any middle initials, I'll take those off, you know, so on and so forth. And then I can go ahead and I'm going to just begin that grantor grantee search, even though I think I just did the name on accident, but we'll just ignore that. And then I also opted in to automatically run my property, and you can see it's in bold, so I'm going to go ahead and just click on that, and we'll look at this first before I get into the name. So TPX County, you can see it looks a lot different from the TP counties. It's all pretty black and white. You can't really filter by the column headers, but you can sort. So let's say I wanted to sort by recording date. I could just click the column header there. I like my stuff in reverse chronological. And you can see we have the legal description column, the document types, and again, you can hover your cursor to see the full title of the documents. Recording date, doc ID again. If it's a hyperlink, you can click on it to view. And then the party 1 and party 2. And the CI column again is here, but it doesn't group them together like it did on the combo search, but you can see here we have like a number 1 and a number 1. So that tells me the satisfaction goes with this mortgage. So it's similar, but it's also a lot different. There are filters that can be utilized on this screen. If you click on Show Search Results Filter, you can filter by a certain date range. You can include only or exclude certain documents. So maybe I only want to include conveyances. I could apply that filter here. And now we're only looking at those conveyances. If I go back into the results filter, I can reset to bring all of my postings back. What else do we have in here? Sometimes you'll have a lot of extra lots depending on the county and the way the results are brought back. So you can filter by lot block, section township range, etc. So there are filters that can be used to kind of narrow down your results. Also, kicking off a grantor grantee or a name search is going to work a little bit differently as well. You can do the same thing as before by right-clicking and add search, and you can do it from there. The other way is by right-clicking on the name here, which so far this is pretty similar, but you're going to have a different menu here. So you can create a grantor grantee search for the individual name, or sorry, for an individual. Then you'll also have create grantor grantee search for the business. But if you want to do it for all the names that were in this party 2 column, you'll see here we have an option for all, and that's going to run all the names that are in here. So both Sharon and Lewis. So those are always there for you as well. Any questions on this page? I know it looks a lot different, but overall it's still pretty simple to use. All right. Now I'm going to circle back to the name search that I ran here. This works a little bit differently because you have a name pick list in a lot of these TPX counties. And this is mainly because you don't have the same filtering abilities as you do on the what I just showed you where it was all color coded. So this kind of acts as a pre-filter. Now with the pick list, you're going to want to go in here and expand the names, and sometimes you'll have a lot of misspellings and names that you know are just not your subject owners. So in those cases, you can deselect the ones you don't need, select the ones you do need, go on to your next name, expand. You can see it did not select this Sharon, but I do want that. And then this looks like a misspelling, so I'm going to go ahead and select that name as well. and then I can click on continue. And this was just a GI search, so I did not get too many things back, but it's going to work pretty similar to the property results that we were just looking at. And again, if you guys ever need help with this, because it is pretty different from the TP counties, feel free to reach out to me, or you can call this number and we can walk you through the different functionalities. Sometimes it's just a matter of knowing what button to push to get to the next step, and we're always happy to help with that. All right. Next thing we're going to look at, if there's no questions, is the difference between an instrument and an image search, because it is very important to know the difference between these two. So I'm going to go ahead and start with an instrument search. Now, an instrument search is what you'll want to use if you need to see all of the data that correlates to a specific document. So for example here, let me go to Hillsborough again. I'm going to minimize this order. Just need an example here. Now with every county, you're going to most likely have multiple different formats in this dropdown, and it is really important to make sure you select the correct format. Otherwise, you will yield 0 results because it's just not input correctly. So for example here, I'm going to go ahead and put in my book and page of my mortgage. Now, if you include references, this is also going to bring back any secondary documents or any documents that are related or cross-referenced to this particular image. So this could be really good if you're doing like an AVR search and maybe you need the mortgage along with any assignments and satisfactions. Including references is going to bring back all of those documents. And then I can go ahead and begin the search. Just to give you a visual on an instrument search. It's going to look familiar to you as far as all the different columns. So you're getting all of the data for that document. And for that reason, an instrument search does incur an inquiry charge as well as any documents that you view. Now, an image search is a lot less expensive. It is what you'll want to use if you simply just need a copy of a document. You're not going to get any data. So just to give you a visual, I'm going to put in the same exact document. Oops. Great example of how I had the wrong format put in here. So I want to make sure I select that, change it to book and page, and then add to requests. The green dot means that the image is available, and then I can just go ahead and click on the doc ID or the book and page and view it from here. So an image search is only going to incur the charge of the document itself. There's 0 inquiry charge. Instrument search is going to have an inquiry charge plus whatever documents you view. I see we have a raised hand from Terry. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Does TitlePoint pull confidential images?
It depends on the county. I have seen where it does, and there have been instances where I've seen that it does not. So I think it really just depends. Never hurts to try. I know we have some clients who use TitlePoint in Florida specifically because they can get a lot of those confidential documents. So
okay,
I would say a lot of times,
silly
yes.
Question number 2. If you pull a document, it shows the little green dot and you open it and then it says confidential. So it really didn't do any good. Do we still get charged for that?
That is a great question, and I'm not exactly sure, but I'll ask your account manager after this, and I'll get that answer to you guys. I'm just going to write this down so I don't forget.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there any other questions on difference between instrument and image search? All right. Next thing I want to get into now is the order home page. So to get to an order home page, just like with everything else in TitlePoint, there's a few different ways you can do it. One is by clicking directly on your order number in the recent activity. This will bring you to your order home page. The other way to do it is by going to orders and find. Maybe it's not a recent order that you have available here. You can go to orders and then find, and then you can type in an order number. Click find, and that will bring you to the order home page. This is beneficial because you can conduct a lot of maintenance on an order. Maybe you need to add on any type of search. You can do that from here. Maybe you have a buyer name who's dropped off. You can check that and delete them out of your order. And then you can also print, email, or save your entire order, or maybe you just need to save the images or just the results, etc. And then the last thing that you can do, maybe not the last thing, but another thing is you can do date down searches from here as well. And that brings me to a question. Do you guys ever have to do update searches or date downs on past orders? Thank you. So I'll just kind of demonstrate that. It's super automated and it's pretty much the click of a button here. So in the date down drop down here, you're going to have a few different options. Now, if you run a date down from prior, it's going to pull all postings forward from the plant date of your last search. But if you do a date down from initial, then it's going to pull all new postings forward from the plant date of the original search, so whenever the order was created. And then last thing is specify. You could put in a specific date, and it's going to pull all postings forward from there. Now, we always like to recommend initial, but it does depend on how you guys run in your operation. But the reason is because maybe somebody before you did a date down and there was a mortgage recorded, you can still see it whenever you conduct any subsequent date downs. So I'm just going to run it from initial. Now keep in mind I did do this order today, so there's probably not going to be anything new. Here you can see this is the order that I just did my date down on. You can see we have the initial search when that was opened, and then we have date down number 1. You can see when that was open. And it's going to automatically run all the parameters that you had in your order previously. So it reran my property. You can see we have a little 0 here. This means there are 0 new postings on the property. And then it also reran the name with, again, 0 new postings. And if there was new postings, you would see that number here in the parentheses. So super automated, super easy. And then you could just go in here, go back to my order. Maybe you just need to print the date down or save it. You could check the box to select all and then print, email, or save. Any questions on date downs? All right. We're nearing the end, so I think I'll just demonstrate now how to actually print, email, or save a search package. Let's say I need this entire order here. I can check everything, or if you need the entire order, you don't even really need to check anything. It'll automatically pull everything. With every option of the print, email, or save, in the little drop-down, you could do all, just your results, just your images, results and images. So it's really versatile on what you might need. Me personally, I need everything. So I'm just going to click the print button here. And the way my preferences are set, I am going to print to PDF. So it's going to open up a download here. And then I can go ahead and save as. I'll just save that. Pull up my files here. And I'll just kind of show you an example of search package here. So we've got my order summary. I can see everything that's in my order, my property results. If there's any filters applied, they will show what filters are applied here. Let's see, we have my property history also prints, so you can see all those underlying layers, any documents that were retrieved, and then also a plat map, my name results, so yes, and there are preferences for printing as well. Maybe you like all of your documents separated, maybe you like them all combined into one search package, or maybe you like them individually into a single folder. So whatever you need, there's a preference for it. And if you ever need help with that, just call us or email me and we can help you with those. All right, we're nearing the end here, so I don't want to get too much into, say, the back plant, but you guys do have back plant access, and we can definitely schedule a follow-up training dedicated to the back plant. But just so you know where it is, on the image search page, this is where you can find the back plant lookup, and this is specifically for tract books. So maybe you have your map number or book and page or subdivision name or a section, township, and range. That's where that can be looked up and searched for. The other back plant is the grantor-grantee back plant, and that can be found on the grantor-grantee page, and we have a grantor-grantee back plant button here. And this is where you can search through very tediously the grantor-grantee back plants by date range, and then also by alphabet, and by grantor, which is direct, and grantee, which is indirect. But I would love to get more in depth with this if you guys need it on a follow-up training. So I'll reach out to maybe Tina and see if we can do that. Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor for any last questions. Feel free to chime in. Rebecca?
Is the property tab versus the express tab, is it basically set up the same way if we were doing a search through that instead of the express?
No, so with express, you can search by the address, property ID, or the assessed owner. On the property page, it's strictly by legal description and like tax ID number. So this is basically a broken down version of your parcel number, I believe. So it might take a little trial and error, but you can search by the like lot, block, subdivision, section, township, range, things like that. So it is a lot different. But if you're ever unsure of how to format your legal, the subdivision lookup is also available here as well. So then you could just type in your, subdivision name, navigate through, find your lot and your block and all that, and then you could add it to the search page and it'll fill it out for you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Shelley?
Yes. In meets and bounds, say we have more than one parcel, maybe 2 to 3 at a time. Can we run 3 parcel numbers at once?
You definitely can. So depending on where you're doing that, say you're on the property page here, you can add more legal descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can opt to merge those results together. Oops. Or if you would like to leave them separate, you can uncheck to keep all of those property results separate. But sometimes merging is nice because if there's the same document posted to all 3 parcels, you'll only see it one time rather than having to look at it 3 separate times. So, totally up to you. Also, if you're on, say, the combo page, you can add more APNs here or add more addresses. So there's always this little hyperlink down at the bottom, and you can add on multiple parcels.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? All right. Well, I super appreciate all of your time and for listening to me talk for an hour straight, and I appreciate all the questions. I'll get with Tina after this to see if we need a follow-up training dedicated to backplant, and then I believe there's going to be a follow-up training for in-depth meets and bounds, so we'll find out more a little bit about that. But I'm going to send you all some documentation to help you with TitlePoint. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reply back to me in that thread and we can work together to get you sorted out. So besides that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to working with you all again soon.